All right, so welcome back. Today we are going to talk about the sigmoid curve. And if you're not familiar with the sigmoid curve, buckle in because I think you're absolutely going to love this. I absolutely love this framework. It's a framework that I personally believe that every business owner, every entrepreneur, really every human being should understand, because when you understand this and you know how to apply this, it truly can unlock the door to success and achievement, regardless of how you define those things. So very excited to jump into this and to teach you more about it, and more importantly, how you can apply it in your world. And so today we're really going to dive most specifically into the 5 traps destroying the success and lifespan of your business, and why so many businesses ultimately die off, and what you can do to prevent it from happening to your business. So, as I mentioned, this is a phenomenal framework, and it is a very simple framework. As I mentioned, it's called the sigmoid curve, and the sigmoid curve has been used to model the life cycle of almost everything from biological organisms, such as human beings, to periods or eras in time, governments, businesses, careers, relationships, right? I mean, literally everything can be placed on the sigmoid curve and related to the sigmoid curve. And as you can see here, there are 3 phases that the curve is broken up into: the learning phase, the growth phase, and the decline phase. So we're going to be diving into these a little bit more. And like I said on the previous slide, more specifically, the traps that you're going to encounter along this curve. A couple things that's important to understand about this curve is that the flow, how it flows through time, it's different for every single individual or entity that is riding the curve. There are going to be some individuals, some businesses that are going to move through sections of the curve significantly faster than other individuals and businesses. There's going to be some that are going to get stuck in certain sections much, much longer than other individuals and businesses. So the flow of time through here, again, it's all relative to the individual. And then the second thing is that as it relates to business, to your business, to entrepreneurship, within a business, there are different areas of the business, or departments, if you want to label it that way. And each area of the business, each department of the business could be somewhere different on this curve. It's not like every section of the business. It's not your marketing department, your sales department, your customer service department, you name it, your HR department, are all flowing through it at the exact same point and at the exact same time. So the flow of time is relevant, and different parts of your business, different parts of your life are at different points on this curve. Okay? So why is understanding the sigmoid curve important? Well, there are 3 main reasons. Number 1, you can't avoid it. No matter how hard you want to try, or no matter how badly you want to believe it, you cannot avoid it. This is something that every business is going to experience. This is not something that some do and some don't. Every business is going to go through this, like human beings. I mean, we have a life cycle, and just like human beings, so do businesses. Like human beings, I mean, we can't skip the toddler phase or the adolescent phase or the midlife crisis phase, right? I mean, we have to go through those. Some go through them more gracefully than others. Some go through them, and some of those phases can go through them quicker than others. But at the end of the day, we all have to go through these. Just like the curve that has those traps, each stage in the life cycle of business, I mean, there's going to be those growing pains. And again, those growing pains could really be characterized by the traps that we're going to talk about here in a moment. So It's important to understand because you can't avoid it. And if you can't avoid it, you should at least understand what it is so you know what you can do about it. Second reason is there's a natural rhythm and pattern to everything. And if you understand that rhythm and pattern, it makes it so much easier to know what to do. So the problems and challenges that businesses encounter, they're not unique, right? Again, there's a rhythm and pattern to it, and they're generally very consistent and very predictable, just like the 4 seasons that are illustrated on this picture, right? I mean, different parts of the country go through different different seasons, maybe faster than others, and some seasons are more prolonged than others, but at the end of the day, you're going through these seasons. So it is very consistent and is very predictable, which the good news is that makes them easier to see coming. And if you can see them coming, then it improves your ability to plan for and to properly address them, right? Just like the seasons, right? You know when they're coming, right? You know it's out there. And if you know it's out there, you can start to make sure that you have the right clothing in your home or, your RV or whatever it is that is properly, or your pool is properly winterized and prepared for the upcoming seasons, right? And so when it comes to the life cycle of a business, it's no different. And the third reason why it's so important to understand this is because if you do understand it, if you properly understand it, you properly manage it, and you act upon it properly, not only will it unlock consistent ongoing growth, but it will indefinitely extend the life of your business. You can keep your business going well after you're gone, well after you leave it, allowing it to be passed on to future generations. So understanding the sigmoid curve has so many important implications, so many important ramifications if you're not careful. So it's really, really important to understand what this is, how it works, and what you can do to use it to your benefit. So, as I mentioned, I want to take a little bit of time here to dive into the curve a little bit deeper. And more specifically, understanding those common traps that you're going to find as you ride the curve. As I mentioned a moment ago, you can't avoid them. You're going to encounter them. So understanding what they are, what they look like, what they mean is going on and most likely in your business is going to make it easier for you to potentially avoid them, or if nothing else, get through them easier. Okay, there's a great quote by, I think it's Winston Churchill, where it's like, if you're going to go through hell, run, don't walk, right? And so we can think of the traps as at times like kind of like going through hell. If we better understand that we're going through them, it makes it easier to know how to run through them, get through them quicker, and get out on the other side. So, trap number 1 is the honeymoon trap. And so the honeymoon trap it's characterized by a period of excitement, optimism, the world is your oyster. Everything is exciting, and the possibilities are endless. And there's a tremendous focus on the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Again, when you're thinking of this in terms of starting a business, it's like, oh, if we did this, and like, oh my word, what it could be, and we could make so much, and right? There's so much excitement around it. And the problem though is that because of all that excitement, because of all this focus on the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, we generally discount the amount of time, effort, and resources that are going to be required to get from where we are at this beginning point to where we ultimately want to be. And because of that discounting of time, effort, and resources, the journey generally starts off on the wrong foot. You can see here, it's the curve dips, right? It kind of feels like you're going backwards versus forward, or that 2 steps back, 1 step forward type of concept. And the reason why the journey starts off on the wrong foot is really for 2 reasons. One is this lack of clarity. Don't have a clue, really what you need to do and what needs to happen, and so that puts you at a disadvantage right out of the gate. There's a great book by a gentleman named Keith Cunningham called The Road Less Stupid. A great title. And the reason he wrote this is because he actually was an individual who made $100 million, and I did say $100 million, and then lost $100 million, and then made it back. Okay, mind-boggling. And one of the things that he talks about that I think is really good insight is he talks about that there are 3 questions that successful people ask themselves. And generally, unsuccessful people, they do not ask themselves all of these questions. They generally only ask the first, maybe the second, but they do not ask themselves all 3. But successful people ask themselves all 3 of these questions. The first is, what's the upside? All right, whether it's an idea, starting business, right, whatever it is, what's the upside? We're all great at that. We're great at asking that question and daydreaming about what it could be, right? The follow-up question is, well, what's the downside? And again, most people don't ask themselves that question. Some do, but a lot don't. The third question, which is as according to him, that really only the successful people ask themselves is, can I live with the downside? What's the upside? What's the downside? And can I live with the upside? Can I live with the downside? And if the answer is yes, you're going into that new opportunity, that new business, whatever it is, you're going into it with a lot more clarity. You have a realistic expectation of what you can expect on that journey. So a lot of people, they start off the honeymoon trap. They start off on the wrong foot, and one of the reasons is because they lack clarity. The second reason they start off on the wrong foot is they don't have a plan. They just jump in and they figure it out as they go. They don't have an instruction manual, and so they're trying to put together the piece of furniture without the instructions. And I don't know if you've ever tried to do that. It can be very frustrating. Okay? And so the good news is the fact that you're listening to this means that you have access to the success blueprint. And that's what it is, right? It's a framework for creating a plan to help you move from point A to point B, to start off on that journey wherever your starting point is, and to do so more successfully, more efficiently, more effectively. So, honeymoon trap. Again, it's the main reason why people get caught in here is because they have lack of clarity. They're just focused on all the upside. They have a lack of clarity, and they don't have a plan. And a great example of this is a personal example. My wife and I, about, 15 years ago, we started a gift basket business. And this picture doesn't do it justice, because this room, it was just filled. There were shelves everywhere, and it was just filled with crap that could go into making a gift basket. And we had so badly wanted to start our entrepreneur journey, and we came across it. Was like, oh, this would be a great idea, and this would be so easy, and we'd make so much money, and like everyone's going to want to buy it. And so we're like, we're in. And we jumped in and we started spending money, and we even paid to try to get some help and some guidance. But we were so unprepared. We totally lacked clarity on what it required, what we needed to do, the right way to approach it. We did not have a plan. We just completely winged it. Needless to say, we don't still have our gift basket business today. I mean, we flamed out in that honeymoon because of that honeymoon trap. Okay. And this is something that a lot of businesses, a lot of new businesses, they really struggle. And you can see a lot of them fail at this stage on the curve, and because of this trap. Okay. So trap 1 is the honeymoon trap. And again, you can see on the curve, it generally results in kind of that backward progress that will then eventually lead to the second trap on the curve, which is the 3 feet from gold trap. Okay. So where the honeymoon trap is filled with excitement and optimism, 3 feet from gold trap, that excitement and optimism, like it's gone. It is gone. Like that excitement and optimism has turned to frustration and pessimism. I mean, you're basically feel like you're at the end of your rope. You don't feel like, you're not sure you can continue going on anymore. You don't see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, because even though it may feel like, in a lot of cases, it feels like you're doing all the right thing, right? You're putting in the time, you're putting in the effort, you're expending the right, or utilizing the what feels like the right resources. Like it's not translating to anything. There aren't any meaningful results, and so you're just like, you start to question yourself, and you start to wonder, like, am I doing something wrong? Did I pick the wrong business? Did I pick the wrong path? And this is where the vast majority of businesses fail. And it's for that very reason, because they're going in the wrong direction. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what to do. They're at that end of their rope. And this happens for the two big reasons why people get stuck in this trap. One is it's due to incompetence. There's a lack of education. There's a lack of understanding what they actually need to do and the right way to go about it. And not only is there a lack of understanding, they're not pursuing trying to figure that stuff out. They're just remaining and still just treading water, continuing to do the same thing. And if you do the same thing, you continue to get what you've always got, right? You do the same thing, you get the same thing. So there's a lack of competence. There's this incompetence around it. And not only is there a lack of education, but they don't reach out to mentors or a coach, right? They don't reach out to somebody else that can help them process through what's going on, can provide guidance, can provide a different way to look at things, help them see some of the things they're missing, the things that are hidden in their blind spot, help them pull back and take some of the emotion out of the decisions and the actions that they're taking, right? So they don't have that competence level, and that really hurts them. The other piece is for a lot of people, it's also the impatience. Like we so badly want to get results right away, but that's not how it works, right? Whether it's putting in your time or, paying your dues or however you want to label, like things take time. You have to let it marinate. You have to let the activities, the actions that you're taking, you got to give them time to work. Darren Hardy in his book, The Compound Effect, again, great book. He talks about this. It's that hockey stick curve. And well, I guess if I'm going in your direction, it starts out and it's going, and it's just flat. You're doing all the right things. You're putting in the right amount of work, the right effort, and it's just so slowly growing. Then all of a sudden you hit that elbow of the curve, and it's like boom. People don't give themselves enough time to get to that elbow where it shoots up. All right, and so our actions with time start to compound on top of one another. They start to build, right? It's like putting money in the stock market or a mutual fund. Slowly, I mean, you just see a little bit of growth, but with time, all of a sudden, boom, it's taking huge leaps every time you get your statement. It's the same thing in entrepreneurship. It's the same thing in our business. It's the same thing with everything in life, but we don't give it enough time to play out. A great analogy that I heard as it relates to kind of the impatience was from James Clear. He wrote the book Atomic Habits, another great book. I should probably think about a career and recommending books, because there's so many great ones out there. But one of the things that he talks about, it's where people get frustrated in their entrepreneurial pursuit, is it's kind of like if you were in this room and the temperature in the room was 0 degrees, and you had this block of ice on the table, and you were able to kind of just slowly turn the temperature up in the room. And, all of a sudden, you're going from 20 degrees to 21 degrees to 22 degrees, and all along, like, nothing's happening. The block of ice, like, it isn't changing. It isn't melting. It's still a solid block of ice. 23 degrees, 24 degrees, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden you hit 32 degrees and there's a matter shift. From 31 to 32, it's just a 1 degree jump, right? The same thing as 22 to 23. But all of a sudden, the block of ice starts to melt. In what he says about this is, one, you got to give it time, but two, you have to remember that all the effort, all the energy that was building from 20 to 21 to 22 to 23 degrees, right, all that energy, it's not wasted. It's just building. It's just compounding. And eventually, you hit that inflection point and the ice melts. And translating into the entrepreneurial world, sales start to take off. Okay? So, one of the big reasons that businesses flame out here, it's due to incompetence and it's due to impatience. And a great example, a great story is where the trap, the name of the trap, the 3 feet from gold, where that name comes from is in the book Think and Grow Rich. And Napoleon Hill, he talks about this gentleman who later in life, he ended up having a tremendous amount of success, but early on during kind of the gold rush days, he moved from Maryland. And so before he left, he got all this money from family that were investing, and he was going to go out and he was going to strike it rich. He was going to go stake his claim, and he was going to find a bunch of gold. He's got all this money. He went west, and he bought all the equipment, and he bought a plot of land, and he just started going to work. And was trying to find it. And every once in a while he'd stumble upon a little nugget here or there, but nothing meaningful. And at one point he found a good amount. It was a meaningful amount. He brought it up, pulled it out of the ground, went and cashed it in, and had enough to kind of just cover his expenses and so on and so forth. And so now he was going to take that and he was going to go back and he was going to find that next big vein of gold. And now he was gonna get rich. He'd covered all of his expenses, right? And he was gonna go get rich. So he went back to work and he started looking and then looking and nothing. Till one day he finally was just like, screw it, I'm done. And he went to a gentleman in the town that was selling all the the mining equipment. And he sold all his equipment back, and he sold him the plot of land, and he went back home. And what the gentleman that he sold it to did is he went out to the plot of land, he looked at it, and so on and so forth, and realized that he didn't have the education, he didn't have the expertise, he didn't have the knowledge to know where to even begin. And so he paid someone that was familiar with fault lines to come in and survey the land and tell him what he needed to know about his plot of land. And the surveyor came in and looking at things and said, okay, so you see here's the fault. Where the previous gentleman stopped was literally 3 feet from a major fault line of gold. If he had better understood fault lines, he would have been able to hit the mother lode. Right? And so again, part of it's incompetence and part of it's impatience. And so it's a great story. And that properly illustrates why so many entrepreneurs, so many businesses flame out. So trap number 2 is 3 feet from gold. What generally is needed to move through and past that is to start pulling gold out of the ground. But in present terms, it's getting sales, right? It's starting to have revenue come in. And once that revenue starts to come in, we break free of that trap and we enter into the growth phase. And as we enter into the growth phase, things start to look up. And as we start to ride the curve up, the third trap that we hit on our way up is the founder's trap. Now, the founder's trap is the trap that I see so many business owners, like I cannot emphasize the word so many, or the two words so many, strong enough. So many business owners, so many entrepreneurs, this is where they're stuck. And so many of them stay stuck here. I mean, for the entirety of their business. Okay, so this is a big one. And so this trap is characterized by the fact that there's not enough hours in the day, not only to stay afloat, but to get ahead. Tell me if you can relate to that. Like, there's so much to do that you can't catch up. Right? Not only can you not catch up, like you cannot make any meaningful movement ahead. You're just barely treading water. You're trying to keep your nose and your mouth just above the water line so you can survive. Right? And this is in the most common excuse in the founder's trap is, I don't have enough time. There's not enough time. There's always something related to time. Spoiler alert, you have the same amount of time that Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, they all have the same amount of time in the day as you do. Time is not your problem. How you're using your time is your problem. Right? This is the problem that so many people that are stuck in the founder's trap struggle with. And a big reason for it is they're trying to wear every hat in the business. They're trying to do everything themselves because they think they're the only ones that can do it. They don't trust their employees. They're not willing to get their stuff off their plate. And as a result, growth hits a ceiling that they can't, a lot of times they can't maintain, let alone break through. And there's two big things that they could do, two big reasons why they keep bumping into the ceiling. These two things that don't exist. One is systems and processes. According to W. Edward Demings, who's considered kind of the foremost expert in like quality management, he has a quote that's 94% of a business's of failures. 94% of failures are as a result of the system. There's no systems and processes, right? Everything is just shooting from the hip and winging it. Everybody's doing it different, or each time it's being done differently. And when you can't systematize something, when you don't have a process for something, it's really hard to then, number two, to know how to delegate, to how to move things off your plate. So number two is the owner, the entrepreneur hasn't learned how to properly eliminate, automate, and delegate. In his book, Rory Vaden, in his book, Procrastinate on Purpose, he talks about a concept of eliminating, automating, and delegating, where it's, think of like pouring things into a funnel. You have all the stuff that you have to put into the top of this funnel. And as it filters down, the first layer is, what can you eliminate? What can you stop doing? What doesn't need to be done? And I know a lot of you are like, oh, there's nothing. I promise you, there are things that don't need to exist in your world, things that don't need to be done. You can stop doing them and no one's going to care. No one's going to miss them. So first step is, what can you eliminate? If it can't be eliminated, it passes through, and what can you automate? What can you use technology what can you pass off to technology and let technology do for you? Generally, there's probably a thing or two or three that you can pass off to technology and let it automate and take it off your plate, and you don't have to worry about it. And it'll not only will technology do it better, he'll do it faster. Okay. And then if it can't be eliminated, if it can't be automated, then what can you delegate? What can you give to someone else? And we're not talking delegation through abdication, right? It's not like, hey, go figure it out. I mean, delegation, the proper delegation requires an investment of time. It requires a mindset, an acknowledgement of, I know that I'm going to have to spend time teaching this person how to do it, where if I didn't have to spend that time, if I didn't have to do that, I'm like, I could just do it myself and not spend that time. That's why people don't give it up. It's an investment that eventually will pay you back. So you have to invest time to teach the person how to properly do it. Give them some leash to be able to do it, and to, in some cases, do it better than you did it, to figure out ways to do it quicker. And with time, you'll be paid back, and it'll free up time, and you'll start banking time. Okay. And if it can't be eliminated, if it can't be automated, if it can't be delegated, then it falls out of the bottom of the funnel, as Rory talks about. And then it's like, what needs to be done by me and what needs to be done right now? And if it doesn't need to be right now, then it's set off to the side. And if it does, then you do it. And so having systems and processes and understanding how to eliminate, automate, and delegate is what helps people break out of, I should say, that founder's trap. And when you break out of it, that's when you start to see some really amazing growth. That's when you can start to scale that growth. And what's fascinating about this is that it really takes to get out of the founder's trap, it's subtraction. It's growth through subtraction. It's systems and process. You're taking things off your plate. Elimination, automation, delegate. You're taking things off your plate. It's growth through subtraction. Until you learn how to subtract, you can't grow. Okay? And like I said, so many people get stuck in the founder's trap indefinitely. And a great example of this was Sam Carpenter. He wrote a book called Work the System. And he wrote the book based off of his experience, and he still owns it today, but his experience running his company, Centratel, which was a telephone answering service. And he talks about where for years, he was doing everything himself. He was working 100 plus hours a week. He was making no money. I mean, he was burnt out. He was fried. He was exhausted. He was stressed out to the point where he ended up, getting divorced. Yeah, he couldn't even afford an apartment. Lost his house. Couldn't even afford an apartment. He was living on a cot with his kids, like in the back room. Right? He was spending so much time. He was getting nowhere. And he talks about where it was one night where he was sleeping, and he had this dream where he felt like he was kind of just he saw a situation, but he was kind of pulled up and out of pulled out of it and up above it, and where he could see it. He could look down and he could see all the pieces, and he had this revelation, this epiphany. He understood that if he could take the various pieces, if he could break his business into pieces and think of it in pieces, and perfect each piece with systems and processes, properly automating and delegating where need be, if he could perfect that and then put it back together, he could have a perfect business. And so he did that. He went to work doing this, and it took him time to do it, but he went to work and he did it to the point where he now works 4 hours a week, and his business is booming. Super profitable. And the 4 hours a week, you know what he spends those 4 hours doing? Reviewing the systems and processes with his team that he's delegated the responsibilities to. Reviewing, are there ways to make it better? Make it more efficient, more effective. Okay? So, trap number 3, founder's trap. I suspect many of you are probably in this one right now. Okay? But the good news is there's a way out. Okay? The way out is through subtraction. Systems and processes. Eliminate, automate, delegate. Okay? So, once you break 3 of the founder trap, as I mentioned, that's where it turns into this you start having this amazing growth. Like it seems like everything's working. You can start scaling. And as that happens, you encounter the 4th trap on the curve, which is the success trap. Okay? So the success trap, it's characterized by the fact that like literally everything has come together. The business, sales are growing. The business is thriving. You've figured out how to, leverage your time, your effort, your resources. You have the systems and processes. You're brilliant at knowing what to eliminate, what to automate, delegation, and things are just great. Everything you touch turns to gold. But the reason why it's a trap, and Jim Collins in his book Why the Mighty Fall characterized it perfectly. It's the reason why where people the trap that people fall into. It's this undisciplined pursuit of more. They're so successful that they think that they can turn everything to gold. It's that Midas touch fallacy. Everything, King Midas, everything he touched, right, turned to gold. It's this fallacy that they believe that they can do anything and without fail. And so what ends up happening is they start trying these other things. They start venturing into these things that they don't have really any experience, knowledge about. They really shouldn't be spending their time into it. And then number two, as a result, they neglect and they ignore their primary flywheel, the thing that got them to where they are. Right, that flywheel, all of a sudden, I mean, it starts slowing and it starts slowing if you're not spending any time on it. And eventually, if the thing that got you to where you are starts to come to a stop, that's a problem. Okay, and a great example of this is Circuit City. Circuit City was a ridiculously successful company with doing what they did. The problem is they got so good, they got so big for their britches that they started thinking that they could do other things. And so they started venturing into a couple different things that they ventured into was CarMax. I mean, everybody's heard of CarMax. Circuit City was the one that started venturing into that. The problem was, although it was a great idea, the problem was they neglected the thing that got them to where they were. They also put money into this thing called DivX, which was a way to like a DVD player that had some encryption in it and allowed a different way that you could rent a DVD and hold on to it for a certain period of time. And anyway, they started pumping money and focus and attention into this, all the while ignoring what had made them successful. And so they had, and because of that, it was a spectacular crash. I mean, they fell from graces just like a stone in the ocean. So again, it's once you get to a point where things are great, and we've reached being, we've reached that label of being successful. You haven't made it to the mountaintop. Right? That's not where it ends. It still requires attention, right? It still requires focus. There's still more work to be done. And you can't just try anything and try everything. And you definitely can't neglect what got you to where you are. Okay? So trap number 4 is the success trap. And what ends up happening is if individuals, businesses don't break free from that trap, which we'll talk about in a moment how you do that. If you don't break free from that trap, you end up starting to ride the curve from the growth phase into the decline phase. And the decline and the trap in the decline phase is the denial trap. Okay, so the denial trap, this is where sales they've flattened, and in most cases they're starting to go in the wrong direction. Right, in how you know, so that's one way that you know that you're you've more than likely, you know that you're in the decline phase. But the way that you know that you're stuck in the denial trap is because there's a ton of finger pointing. There's a refusal to accept responsibility. There's a refusal to look inward for the solution. It's not us. Our customers don't get it. It's not us. It's the economic environment. It's not us. It's the government. It's not us. It's not us. And so it's always looking outward and blaming versus looking inward and understanding the decisions that you made up to this point that put you where you are. And it's also characterized by the belief that the market will come to its senses, right? The customers, they don't know what they're thinking. They'll eventually figure it out and we'll be fine, right? That the market will come to its senses and it'll get back to normal. Within the denial trap, there are two phases that you see. There's kind of this culture of conservatism. And I don't mean of conservation. There's this culture of conservation. And I don't mean like conservation like saving the planet. That's great conservation. I mean conservation where it's, this is the way it's always been done. That's like nails on a chalkboard to me. When someone uses that excuse, like, well, we can't do something different because that's not the way it's been done. We need to do it this way because that's the way it's always been done. And so it's this refusal to move forward. It's this refusal to accept the fact that the economy, the world has moved forward. It's this refusal to keep up. It's this refusal to move forward with it. That's not the way it was done before. And we're going to keep doing it the way it was always done. So this culture of conservation, of keeping things the way things always were. And then there's also this innovation black hole. Innovation, it's absent. And not only is it absent, in a lot of cases, it's actually discouraged. It literally, it's like, no, don't spend time. Don't put any money and effort in it. We're not going to do that. We're going to just keep doing what we're doing. And a phenomenal example of a company that fell prey to the denial trap was Eastman Kodak. Eastman Kodak, I mean, they were a titan of industry. They were a huge company at one point in time. What the problem was is they got to a point where they put all of their emphasis and all of the reasons to put everything into film. And as you're aware of today with iPhones and SLR cameras and so on and so forth, like everything's digital. I mean, there's still film is still out there, but it's such a small percentage of it. Everything's digital. And so they actually had an employee that saw the trend well before digital was a thing, saw the trend, saw that companies were starting to look at this, and there were people that were starting to use it, and so then thought, this is an opportunity. That not only is an opportunity, I think this is where things are going to go. And they brought it to, the powers that be, and they're like, nope, that is not where it's going to go. That's not what consumers, they don't know what they want, and that's not it. That's not what we're going to do. We are a film company. And so that the innovation, it was discouraged. There was no innovation. It was absent, for one, and it was discouraged. And it was this culture of conservation where it's like, nope, we're staying right where we are. And as a result, Eastman Kodak they are a shell of what they once were. And again, it's because they got caught in the denial trap and they couldn't get out of it. So with the denial trap, one of the things that's important to understand is that it's much easier to avoid it than once you're stuck in it to climb back out. It's not that you can't, but it's much easier to avoid, to not even get there in the first place, because once you get there, the likelihood of you riding that curve into the ground and the life of your business coming to an end, pretty strong likelihood. So the solution, how you move not only out of the success trap but avoid the denial trap, is you reinvent or you re-engineer. And by doing so, you in essence create a whole new curve. You create a whole new curve that starts to stack onto the previous one. And you keep doing it, and you keep creating these new curves, and you keep riding this up. In experiencing more and more growth and a longer and longer lifespan for your business. So again, what's kind of when it comes to reinventing and re-engineering, it's not about going outside your scope and abandoning what got you there. It's improving and or building upon what's made you great. Right? It's taking the products and that made you great. How can you make them better? How can you take a system or a process that's been working, but how can you improve it to again get the product in your hands? In your customers' hands faster. How can you manufacture it faster? How can you reduce errors and problems and mistakes? So, and the other thing too is when it comes to reinventing and re-engineering, we're not talking about just having to reinvent. You don't have to reinvent or re-engineer the entire company. It can just be a component. It can be a division. It can be a product. It can be a process. It can be a philosophy. Okay? And so a great example of this is Amazon. Amazon is very clear on who they are and what they're trying to accomplish, and they do not deviate from it. But what they do is they're constantly reinventing, re-engineering. They're improving their systems and processes. They're improving their offerings. They're finding better ways to do what they're already great at. And that's why they continue to grow. That's why they're one of the, I'm trying to think if they, at this time, if they are the company with the largest market cap in the world. If not, they're very, very close. All right, and that's why that business will continue to exist. If it continues to do this, that's why it will exist long after Jeff Bezos, has come and gone. Okay, so the solution to when you get up to the top of the curve is to reinvent and re-engineer. So, what can you do? This is all great stuff, right? We've talked about what it is, why it's important, and the traps that you can fall into as you're riding that curve. But what do you do about it? Well, there are 3 simple steps that you can take to help you move through that curve, move through those traps, deal with those traps, avoid those traps much more effectively, much more successfully. The first is you need to determine the different areas in your business and the traps that they're stuck in and why they're stuck in them. Right? So again, you can look at your business as a whole and go, oh man, my business as a whole, I'm like right here. That's great. That's important. But you also need to break your business down and understand where various aspects of it are, because if you just look at it as a whole, I'm like, my business is here, and you try to start to go to work there, well, that may not be the real problem. That may not be why you're stuck. It may be because you're being held back because an area of your business is stuck somewhere else. So you need to determine the different areas of your business and the traps that they're stuck in and why they're stuck there. Again, you can't solve a problem you don't understand. The why gets to the heart of what that problem really is, why it exists. And once you understand why it exists, then you can start to make a list of the different actions, the different things that you can do, the different actions you can take to break free from that trap each area of your business is facing. And then once you've made that list, the final step is that you need to choose the most impactful action and you need to get to work. You can't focus on everything. You can't do everything. And when you try to do everything, you're not going to do any of it well. You're not going to succeed at any of it. You're not going to succeed at any of it. You're not going to fully accomplish any of it. So you need to pick the action that is going to give you the most impact, right? That is going to be the most potent for moving you out or around that trap. And then once you do that, then you get to work. So what I've done is I've created a simple little worksheet that you can use to help you go through this 3-step exercise. So you can see here, first step, again, which area of your business? You may have 2 or 3 areas. You may have 10, whatever it is. What are the different areas of your business? So break them down individually. This particular area of the business, what trap is it? What trap is it either in or is it approaching? If you're not careful, you may be in between traps. But if you're not careful, you're going to fall victim to that next coming trap. Which one is that? And why? Why are you stuck in it? Or if you're in between, why would you get stuck in it if things don't change? All right, so list that out. Then make a list of all the different things that you can do, the possible actions you can take. And then once you have that list, key in on the one that's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. And again, do this for each area of your business. And once you have that information, again, then it's just time to get to work. It's time to take action on the thing that you know will make the difference. So this is a worksheet you can use. I have it down below as a that you can download it. You can print it out if you'd like to chicken scratch it, write it out, or it's a fillable PDF. Whatever you prefer, either way, use it as you see fit. But the main thing is use it. Okay, so that's what you can do. That's what the curve is, and that's how you can ride the curve successfully. Listen, you can't avoid you can't fully avoid some of these things, you're going to have to deal with them, but they don't have to be as bad or as long lasting as they are, these traps, as they are for so many other entrepreneurs and business owners out there. So, wrapping up, what are the key takeaways that I want you to walk away with? Well, the first is, again, you cannot avoid this. This is not something you can be like, it doesn't apply to me. It does. Doesn't matter how bad you want it to not apply to you, it applies to you. Okay? You're going to have to go through it. So you need to understand it. Second thing is, there is a rhythm and pattern. As we talked about, there's a rhythm and a pattern that the curve goes through. The business is going to go through that rhythm and that pattern. When you understand the rhythm and pattern, when you can see it coming, you can better prepare. The more clarity you have, the better your decision making can be. And then the third takeaway is, when you know that, when you act on it, when you manage it appropriately, your growth can take off. And not only can it take off, it can keep going. Not only can it keep going, but it can keep going without you having to work blood, sweat, and tears, without any of that, to the extent that you probably feel like you're putting in right now. Okay? Growth through subtraction, right? Those are the key takeaways from this. So, what are the next steps? What do I want you to do? Again, I hopefully you feel that this was good information. Hopefully you feel that this is stuff that you that could benefit you, but what do you do with it? Well, the first thing is pick one area of your business, right? Go through the worksheet. And then start with one area of your business. You don't have to do it all. You probably shouldn't do it all. Pick one and just get to work. Identify that key action and knock it out of the park. Get it out of the way. Move out of that trap. And then move to the next. And then once you do that, move to the next. Okay? But start with picking one area and taking action. The other thing that you need to do, watch the other framework trainings. These all kind of work together and play off one another. You probably heard me say that on the other trainings. I'm going to keep repeating it because it's true. You need to watch these other trainings because in conjunction, it's going to add rocket fuel to your growth and to the achievement of success. Okay, so watch those other trainings. And then thirdly, if you have not done so, if you have not purchased the VIP coaching call, if you've not booked it, do it. Right off to the side, there's a link that you can go back and you can get it. And once you get it, you can get on my calendar. And through that call, again, we can focus on the success blueprint. We can focus on anything else that you want to focus on. Right? We can get into whatever it is that you need to help you get unstuck, to help you get clarity, and to help you move effectively and efficiently forward, to help you move to that next level and to help you start moving towards reaching your full potential. So that's all I got. That's it. I really, really appreciate you spending the time with me going through this. Again, I hope this was helpful. I hope you found this as interesting and fascinating as I do. Every time I've known this concept for a while, but I still find it fascinating every time I dig into it because it's everywhere. It is truth. It's not conjecture. This is truth. This is the way it works. And so I hope that having this information, having that worksheet and the tools on what you can do make a difference. And I hope that you'll use them. And once you do, drop me a note. I want to hear about those successes that you're having. Get after it. And enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Get after it. And we will talk to you soon.